Hey everyone, Doug at Convology here. Today, Thrive just released or announced and released the beta version of Thrive Automator, which is their first plugin that they've made in, I think, going on 3 years now, which I think they've actually heavily promoted the fact that they've been so devoted to improving their current plugins and releasing their theme and doing all the things that Thrive does, that this is the first plugin in a while. So with Thrive Automator's release, or at least the beta version, a lot of really cool things are going to be possible for Thrive Suite. Before we get ahead of ourselves and start diving into all the different ways we can currently use this tool to connect other things to Thrive Suite and make Thrive Suite plugins do other things for existing Thrive Suite plugins, I thought it would be a good idea to go through the plugin, just do a quick overview, give you my initial impressions, talk about what the plugin is and what it is not, what it may be in the future, and what I don't think it will ever become. I think those are important things for us to consider as we look at using this plugin in our business. All right, so the first thing you see when you load up Thrive Automator is this interface to get started. And what I really like about the interface, my first initial impressions, are just how clean it is. I think it's super intuitive. I think it's really easy to just jump in and start making automations. Everything seems to be contained within a page that doesn't require a lot of reloading. Also, it doesn't rely on that clunky WordPressy feel. You know what I'm talking about if you used other plugins like the Automator plugin, Uncanny Automator. I think that interface is a little clunky. The old CartFlows interface, for example, used to rely a lot more on WordPress-based things. I think this interface is just really clean and gets to the point. Okay, Thrive Automator breaks things up into triggers, filters, delays, and actions. And the first thing you do when you create a new automation is to choose a trigger or to choose what happens. It's going to show contextually what you have on your website. So it's always going to show the WordPress triggers, right? Those are things like users log in and out, reset passwords, create new accounts, things like that. These are going to have, I think, minimal use for most people. Those who do a lot of free stuff might obviously have more to do here, like user makes a free account. Okay, then what? But for most people, this won't really be too applicable. I think Thrive Apprentice right now is really at the front and center forefront of everything in this automator. I think right now pretty much everything is driving people towards Thrive Apprentice. I also think that's a big part of Thrive Theme's business right now as well. They are kind of going that direction, at least in the last 8 months, 12 months, it's been pretty Thrive Apprentice focused, rightfully so. It's the biggest market right now. But there's a lot of things in here, like when users enroll or complete, or when they purchase. Purchasing and enrolling, two different things, right? Purchasing would be they come from like ThriveCart or Sendal, whereas enroll would be they just get added to a course. So you'll want to pay attention whether you choose enroll or purchase based on how you've built your tech stack. I'll create more videos on this, by the way. I've already got a whole list of videos I'm creating for Thrive Automator. Right now, we're just going to do that 30,000, maybe 10,000 foot overview as we dig in and look at this. And like I mentioned, it's contextual. So we have Thrive Quiz Builder installed, so we can trigger based off of a quiz completion, or we can trigger off of an ultimatum lockdown campaign. This would be like if you've built an evergreen scarcity campaign where someone has a limited time to act on something, you could technically trigger this campaign based on them accessing a course or something like that. We have a form submit, which in my limited poking around in this tool before making this video, I thought the form submit was really, really cool. So I'm definitely making a video on that. There's so much like widespread applicability for creating various tech stack integrations using form submit. So keep your eye out for that video. And then we get to what I think might be honestly the most intriguing part of the Automator plugin right now, and that's the integration with WooCommerce, because this is where we take a step back and say, okay, maybe it's not all Thrive Apprentice related, because the automations that you can make when somebody purchases a course, and then how you can integrate with your autoresponder, and how you can integrate with other Thrive products, maybe loop in courses there as well. I think there's some real potential here that would be hard for most email platforms to integrate this well with. Certain email applications like Active Campaigns on top of things, there's a couple others that do super well. But having these automations for WooCommerce are going to really be awesome if you have like an e-commerce website. So we'll be making some videos on these and how to make some cool automations as well. So that's our look at the triggers. Now I mentioned there are triggers, filters, delays, and actions. All right, so let's choose a trigger, and I'm going to choose enrolls in a course. And I'm going to choose enrolls over purchases because purchases has other implications, but enrolls applies to added manually, purchases a course, all those things. And then I'm gonna click done. And then I'm going to open up this little window here, which we haven't seen yet, which is to add the next step. And the next step, like I mentioned, takes the form of filters, delays, or these other implied actions like enrolling in a course or removing from a course or tagging in autoresponders and stuff like that. But for this one, we have an implied follow-up. User enrolls in a course. We're going to choose filters. And I've already submitted my feedback here where when they choose enrolls in a course, I wanted that data just to be right below within this trigger. Like, okay, they enrolled a course. What course? Rather than they enrolled in a course. Now I have to add a filter, scroll down, choose course title, and then say, okay, I'm going to choose my great course about courses and click done. See, I think that the filter was just one extra step that didn't need to be there. So here's hoping that gets fixed. So now we have our trigger and our if, right? Our filter, only if it's this title. So what happens after they enroll in that course? Well, maybe the natural follow-up here would be to tag them in my autoresponder, or maybe it would be to start an ultimatum campaign and give them some other kind of offer based on their enrolling in that course. And this is where we kind of hit just a little bit of a wall, because in many cases, when somebody enrolls in a course, if they came to the course through purchasing, let's say through ThriveCart, well, ThriveCart technically already integrates really well with just about every autoresponder you're going to use. Not in every case. I will say, for example, it does not integrate well with Fluent CRM. So I could say, okay, add user in my autoresponder, and then I would choose my autoresponder, and on this demo site, if it had Fluent CRM, it would be there. So in some cases, this is going to be great if you use Fluent CRM, which by the way, I use, making a video on that. But if you sent them to your autoresponder from ThriveCart, well, then this filter or this particular automation would have limited use. So just poking around a couple of these other features. So we can set a fairly standard delay. We can set, if we want it to be 5 hours, then we could add another action and so on. So that's really the gist of Thrive Automator right now. I want to point out kind of the obvious, and that obvious right now is that this is fairly limited. So it's obvious that it's in beta. And right now, there's not a whole lot that you can do with this if it doesn't fit a specific use case. So for us, that specific use case would be if you're a Fluent CRM user and you make courses, awesome. This tool has tons of applicability. If you use WooCommerce, particularly for selling courses, or any product will probably be the same, and you use an email program that has a less than stellar integration with WooCommerce, then awesome. This applies really, really well. If you use Thrive Quiz Builder and you have a very specific case where you want the completion of a quiz to open up another course, that's a great use case. But other than that, there are only going to be a few very niche use cases that make this right now particularly useful to you. And I'm only giving you this immediate, what is the date today? It's like the 16th, right? So August 16th, the date this beta became available. I'm only giving you these opinions and thoughts right now because I don't want you to run out, grab Thrive Automator and say, well, gee, this really isn't useful to me. Or, gee, I don't really know what to do with this. Or, hey, this really isn't automating much at all. I think the potential here is in the future, right? So on their roadmap, this will eventually be able to send outgoing webhooks, which can trigger the world, right? We all use those tools that can receive webhooks, and basically okay, a user rolls in a Thrive Apprentice course, then what happens outside of my website? That's cool. That's coming in the future. There's also going to be additional apps and integrations, much deeper API integrations with those tools. Hopefully one day two-way integration, which I think is something that's on the horizon with a lot of these tools. So in the future, we're going to have much more integration between Thrive Suite tools and tools that either make an API integration with Thrive or that Thrive adds to this incoming app library of things that they're going to feature inside Thrive Automator. So really, that segues nicely into this other topic that I want to talk about, which is what Thrive Automator is not and what I think it will never try to be. This is not Zapier. And that's going to be, I think, a pretty big misconception. Like, oh man, can I get Thrive Automator and get rid of Zapier? Yeah, maybe. Totally maybe. For some things that you use Zapier for, yeah. But for most people, I don't think you can get rid of Zapier, integrate Leapably, all those, because they do different things. And the key here is that Thrive Automator is more for getting things to work with Thrive than it is getting other things to work together. So let me re-say that. Zapier, Integrately, Integromat, Pabbly, all those tools, they get other things to work together, all kinds of other things. Thrive Automator gets all kinds of other things to work with Thrive. And I know that's probably limiting it more than the Thrive team would like to hear said, or maybe that is oversimplifying it, because there are cases where I can trigger a WooCommerce automation and have it go to my email autoresponder. Yeah, those aren't Thrive things, okay? Those cases will exist, but right now, at least, until we see a major departure from this direction, I think that this is very much about getting the outside world to work better with Thrive, which I think we can all agree is something that they've needed for years, right? That's been a major, I've heard many, many times from developer friends who've made really cool, popular plugins. Oh man, I sure wish that could work with Thrive, but there's just no API. Well, now there is. There's an API. External developers can make plugins and make their plugins talk to Thrive. And that's kind of the last thing I want to talk about in this video. Is a lot of this is going to be a waiting game. We're going to have to wait for developers to say, okay, yeah, I want to put in the time and develop an integration with Thrive Automator or with Thrive, right? The API is the Thrive Themes, Thrive Suite API. It's not like Zapier, right? Or Integromat. So those are things to keep in mind, that this tool is not one of those catch a webhook from anywhere and then decide what happens and shoot it off another direction. This is about making the Thrive Suite ecosystem 1,000 times better. Part of what I'm doing in exploring these tools and making videos and using them on my own businesses is to try to figure out, is this going to make something else possible that was not possible before? And like I mentioned, the big one is with Fluent CRM. There's a lot of possibilities here. So that's going to kind of do it for my initial impressions of Thrive Automator. Again, we've gone over what it is right now. It's in beta, what it will be, hopefully, what it is and what it isn't. I'd be interested in hearing what use cases you've discovered that you feel are now possible because of Thrive Automator that were either not possible in the past or required some other big expensive tool. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear about those. And also love to hear what ways you'd like to use Thrive Automator in the future. I think the more we share the ways in which we can use these awesome tools, I think the better everyone will be for it. So that'll do it for me. I'm Doug from Convology. I'll see you in the next video.